Well, this journey for me started a long time ago when I first saw an elephant on the TV and I fell in love. And ever since then, the elephant has been my favorite animal. I've wanted to be close to elephants because being close to elephants, actually, though humanity is destroying the earth, there is still hope for nature. I came to Thailand, as I usually do my boxing training. I came across some elephants who were being tortured for the purposes of trekking, where people would sit on their backs and ride them so they can take pictures of them and feel good about enslaving an animal. So originally I wanted to free those elephants. We went all the way to Surin, which is the east of Thailand, to try to get these elephants freed. But the owner of the elephants, she wasn't interested in getting them freed. She was only interested in continuing to make money. I met my friend Pimel from the Samui Haven Elephant Sanctuary, who told me that though we couldn't free those elephants, there was another elephant that we could free. Her name is Som O. She is 55 and she has been enslaved all of her life. What they do is they take very young elephants and they steal them from their mothers in the forest, but also they breed the elephants and then they take them away from their mothers and they do what is called the crush, where they take the elephants, they put them in a box and then they beat and torture the elephants until the elephant's spirit is broken. Once the elephant's spirit is broken, then they can get the elephant to do anything for them. They use hooks, these metal hooks, and they hit them on their temples and they drag them down their forehead, and they use ropes to tie them up. When you see elephants at the circuses and they're performing tricks, the mahout is very close to them and he usually has nails in his hands and he stabs them with the nails to get them to perform the tricks. The elephants are overworked, they're underfed, and they are regularly abused. They don't have any regular elephant interaction, which is disappointing. Because of that, I decided journey to Phuket. The journey started from the island Koh Phangan, where I was staying, and I had to go from Koh Phangan to Koh Samui, and then from Koh Samui we got the ferry to Suratani. Then we drove for 5 hours from Suratani to Phuket, where there's many elephants who are enslaved there, and that is where we met Som O. We did a GoFundMe online, and initially it was to free the elephants so I could build a sanctuary for them in Koh Phangan, but because that wasn't going to work, I just used the money to free the elephant Som O, which is about 25,000 UK, about 28,000 US to free her, and then she needs about 32,000 UK each year to keep her. So to build her a new shelter, to feed her, to pay for the person that's going to look after her, because these elephants, they can't be freed into the wild. The reason being is because they haven't learned all of the behavioral skills from their mothers to be able to know which plants to eat, where to find water, and if they meet a wild elephant or a natural elephant, 9 times out of 10 that elephant will kill them because they don't understand proper elephant socialization. These guys can push down trees and easily kill people. So he spends his time in here, but he's not chained, and he gets to go out and go into the pool and have a good time, and but he can't be with all the other elephants because he will just kill the other elephants. Because males in the wild, they tend to just be on their own and do their own thing. They tend to be they don't get to roam. They're chained up all of the time unless they're performing. Elephants will roam for many kilometers in search of the food that they eat, which is not bananas or sugarcane, but is actually grass and trees, shrubs, bushes. They are always interacting with other elephants. They are bonding through physical touching or communication over long distances using subsonic rumbles. So elephants can actually hear communicating, which is very beautiful. They like to play, they like to bathe, they give themselves a dust bath, which stops them from getting parasites, and actually is like a sunscreen. So when you see elephants and they have lots of patchy skin where it's like red or orange, that is where they have lost their melanin from their skin because they've got skin damage or skin cancer because they've been forced to work under the heat of the day sun, having people ride on their backs, and they haven't been able to put their mud bath on properly. So people need to stop paying to go and take pictures of elephants. People need to stop riding elephants. People need to stop putting elephants in zoos. There are about 4,000 elephants in Thailand, and over half of those elephants are tortured and brutalized for the tourism industry. The ones that have the worst lives live in Bangkok. These elephants are from birth, they are worked to death. As soon as they don't need their mother's milk anymore, they are then crushed, spirits broken, and then that's them enslaved indefinitely on a chain for the rest of their life. When you see the elephants swaying, they are signs of distress. What was really beautiful is seeing how Som-O went from being very sad to being very at peace. When we got to Phuket, we went to a trekking camp and I was introduced to Som-O. There's many elephants there that were also enslaved. I want to be able to free them all. Som-O, when we first saw her, she didn't even want to lift her trunk to feed herself. She wanted us to feed her. That's how broken she is. This is not normal elephant behavior. She was moving really, really slow. So we went into town. We used the money from the GoFundMe to pay for her freedom. So we bought her off her owner and we logged that with the government so that she could be released into the sanctuary where she'll be cared for. During the time, we saw many other elephants, including the beautiful elephant Misap, who actually was giving me cuddles, and she was also rescued from a circus, but she's still enslaved and chained up because she can't be released into the wild, and there's no enclosure for her, so she remains chained up. We got Som-O, and it was really beautiful to see the last time that she would ever be ridden, because I saw freedom then for her. She was ridden down the road to where the truck was, where we loaded her onto the truck, and then we took her to Suratani from Phuket to take her back on the ferry. She had her last meal before the journey, and it was very stressful for myself, because I know how stressed out and how much sound affects elephants, and her being put on a truck for 8 hours, 10 hours or whatever it was, and then being put on a ferry. Elephants can die from exhaustion. So we took her on the truck, and the journey was long and we had to make many stops. There was crazy rain, then there was crazy sun, and I really just feel for her, because she had to be chained up in a way so that she couldn't hurt herself or hurt the driver of the truck, because elephants weigh 5-6 tons, and if she's moving around in the back of there, she could tip the truck. We finally got to Suratani. She was really tired. She was starting to fall asleep while she was standing up. We didn't want her to collapse, so she was on the ferry from Suratani all the way to Koh Samui. Then the truck was driven off the ferry and we drove her to the sanctuary, where she was then freed. I think one of the most beautiful moments for me of the whole journey was when she got off the truck and the chain was finally taken off her foot, because that for me was an emancipation story complete. Having ancestors that were also enslaved, it made me really think and feel that all animals and all life deserves to be free. When she started to take her first steps, I think at that point she knew that she was free, and she just was looking out into the distance, exhausted, but she come a long way. I was really relieved. It brought about a lot of relief for me to see her start drinking, because sometimes elephants after journeys like that, they don't drink, they can't drink, and they just collapse. So she started drinking, and then she started making that low rumbling noise, which is like a noise of happiness, like of reassurance. So she went to sleep that night, and then the next day we were able to introduce her to the herd. We had her eating right by 3 other elephants that had been rescued. They stay in an enclosure at night so that they are safe and the people around them are also safe, but in the daytime they're free to roam. They just have to be watched, because there's no physical fence around the outside of the whole sanctuary, so they can't just go out onto the road. But from when we first brought her to eat food by these 3 beautiful elephants, very young elephants by the way, they were all standing up on the corner of the enclosure and watching her and reaching out with their trunks. They wanted to play with her, they wanted to say hi to her. So when she did eventually walk over, when she'd eaten enough and got the strength to go over there, because she is malnourished, you can see by her ribs, all of the elephants were reaching out, they were touching. She has an abscess on her head from where she's been hooked and where she's been lying on the hard sand ground. They were all smelling her abscess, and then they started to make really affectionate noises. So I said, let's get her out there in the main field and let's bring the elephants to see her. This is where it got really interesting for me. The elephants went to meet Som-O in the main field, and the mahout, he was an ex-mahout, he works at the sanctuary, he started to try and lead her up to the water because I wanted her to, interact with a water pool and play with the elephants. And so he was trying to get her to go up, and the elephants must have been speaking to each other, and they saw that he was trying to move her and she's tired, and they decided that that was enough. And they started to roar. They let out the deepest, loudest roars that I've ever heard an animal let out, and they all started to move as a herd, and they all protected her. They surrounded her and made sure that nobody could get close to her, until at which point they knew that she was safe, and then they came back to us and they started to relax. But even after that, they didn't want to let anybody get close to her. Even myself, I took the hint, it's a big hint, and I was making sure that I was interacting with the 3 elephants more than I was interacting with Som-O to reassure them that I wasn't a threat to her. The last and kind of most important bit was when we brought out Big Mama and the baby Haven, and we introduced them to her. We kept Som-O and the 3 elephants separate. They call them the gangsters at the sanctuary. We kept the gangsters and Som-O in their enclosure while we introduced the baby to them, just so that the Big Mama didn't have any kind of panic or wanted to fight them. And they were all really affectionate, really kind, caring, and it shows me that actually elephants deserve more than what it is we give them. As I said, there's thousands of elephants enslaved in Thailand, and I think that we should try to create more sanctuaries and release more elephants into the wild, because whenever we see these stories, we actually see that it is our own humanity at fault. And as I get older, I realize that it was not the elephant that crossed the road, but it was the road that crossed the elephant's home. And this deforestation and this habitat loss, which is actually destroying a keystone species, which is essential for the survival of all other animals in the forest. So I say this to say thank you for following me on this journey. It has been a success. It was very emotional for me, and emancipation is important, and we must do more of these works, and we must, if we can, find it in our hearts to support this with our money, but also with our lifestyles, so that we can make sure that all elephants are free, because elephants are critically endangered, and within our lifetime, not even the lifetime of our children, elephants are set to become extinct. So for the 30 to 40,000 elephants left in Southeast Asia, and for the 3 to 4,000 elephants left in Thailand, we must do better. Thank you. Excited to tell you that the Samui Haven Elephant Sanctuary now has guest houses for volunteers where you can come and stay, and cafe as well, where you can sit and you can watch, lie in your hammock, you can sit and you can watch elephants, which will be in that pool right there.